Welcome to our countdown of the dumbest famous deaths in history. From freak accidents to unbelievable miscalculations, these historical figures met their end in ways that will make you gasp, cringe, and maybe even laugh. Buckle up, history buffs, because these stories are wilder than fiction. Isadora Duncan, a name synonymous with free-flowing movement and the birth of modern dance. Her life was a whirlwind of artistic expression, pushing boundaries and captivating audiences. But fate, it seems, has a wicked sense of humor. Picture this: the French Riviera, 1927. Isadora, a vision in flowing silk, steps into a convertible, that long scarf draped around her neck. The car starts, picks up speed, and then, tragedy. That scarf becomes entangled in the wheel. The car jerks, a sudden and violent stop. Isadora's neck snaps. The dancer, known for her fluidity, her life tragically cut short by a piece of fabric. Aeschylus, the father of tragedy. A man whose words shook audiences to their core, whose plays explored the depths of human suffering. You'd think a man like that would meet his end in a suitably dramatic fashion, right? Well, buckle up, because this one's a real head-scratcher. Our playwright was strolling along, minding his own business, when out of the clear blue sky, death came knocking. An eagle, you see, was soaring overhead, clutching a tortoise in its talons. Eagles love a good tortoise snack, but cracking those shells, it's a real pain. So, this eagle had a plan. It needed something hard, something heavy to smash that shell open. Enter Aeschylus's bald head, which to the eagle looked like the perfect tortoise-smashing rock. The eagle swooped down, dropped its reptilian payload, and, well, let's just say Aeschylus never saw it coming. Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. A tragic end for a man who understood tragedy so well. Tycho Brahe, an astronomer, an alchemist, a man of science living in the 16th century. He charted the stars, he dabbled in the mystical, and he really needed to pee. Now Tycho was a guest at a grand banquet, and back then excusing yourself from the table was considered the height of rudeness. So Tycho sat there, bladder fit to burst, all in the name of good manners. He drank and he dined, all the while his insides were screaming for relief. But no, Tycho held it. He held it until he couldn't hold it anymore. His bladder, unable to contain itself any longer, simply gave up. The result? A burst bladder, a whole lot of internal damage, and a slow, agonizing death. All because he didn't want to be rude. Moral of the story: when nature calls, for God's sake, answer. Jim Fixx, the man who single-handedly sparked the jogging craze of the 1970s. He wrote the book on running, literally, the complete book of running. He preached the gospel of fitness, and he pounded the pavement like it was his personal mission to outrun death itself. But irony, as we've seen, is a cruel mistress. On a seemingly ordinary day, Jim laced up his running shoes, hit the pavement, and dropped dead. A massive heart attack, the very thing he dedicated his life to avoiding, took him down in his prime. Now, before you hang up your running shoes, understand this wasn't about running being inherently dangerous. It was about genetics, underlying conditions, and the cruel hand fate sometimes deals. Still, the image of the fitness guru felled mid-stride is a stark reminder that life, like a marathon, is unpredictable. You can train, you can prepare, but sometimes, the finish line arrives far sooner than expected. Grigory Rasputin, the Mad Monk, a name whispered in fear and fascination. He was a mystic, a healer, a man who seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to cheat death. He survived poisoning, shootings, beatings, each attempt on his life seemingly reinforcing his aura of invincibility. But even Rasputin, it seems, had a weakness. The story goes that after surviving yet another assassination attempt, Rasputin found himself being chased through the streets of St. Petersburg. He ran, desperate to escape his pursuers, and in a moment of panic, plunged into the icy depths of the Neva River. Now you'd think a man who could shrug off bullets and poison could handle a little swim, right? Wrong. The icy water was too much even for the Mad Monk. He succumbed to the cold, his body finally giving in to the one force it couldn't withstand. The man who seemed invincible, brought down by something as simple as a cold swim. Tennessee Williams, the playwright, the poet, the man who gave voice to the raw, the vulnerable, the beautifully broken souls of the American South. His words painted pictures, evoked emotions, and transported audiences to worlds both familiar and unsettling. But even a master storyteller can't script the final act of life. Picture this: A hotel room dimly lit, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the lingering scent of inspiration. Tennessee, ever the wordsmith, sits hunched over his typewriter, lost in a world of his own creation. He pauses, reaches for a bottle of eye drops, those little plastic caps, a ubiquitous presence in his life. He fumbles, the cap slips from his grasp, and in a moment of absent-minded reflex, he tries to catch it in his mouth. It goes down the wrong way. He chokes, gasps for air, the words he usually commanded now failing him, and then silence. The playwright, silenced by the most mundane of objects, a tragic end, a story left unfinished, a life dedicated to words cut short by their absence. Attila the Hun, the scourge of God. A name whispered in fear, a harbinger of destruction, a man who carved a path of blood and conquest across Europe. He was a force of nature, a warrior king who inspired terror in the hearts of his enemies. But even the mightiest of warriors are not invincible. The story goes that Attila, flushed with victory after conquering yet another kingdom, decided to celebrate in the most traditional of ways, by getting hitched. A lavish feast was held, a beautiful bride stood by his side, and Attila, the fearsome Hun, was ready to enjoy his wedding night. But fate, it seems, had other plans. In the midst of the festivities, Attila suffered a massive nosebleed. Not just any nosebleed, mind you, but a torrential outpouring of blood that left him weak and disoriented. He collapsed, his body racked with convulsions, and before anyone could react, he was gone. The scourge of God, felled by a simple nosebleed. Francis Bacon, a man of science, a philosopher, a statesman, a man who believed in the power of observation and experimentation, he questioned everything, sought knowledge in every nook and cranny of existence, and ultimately met his end in the pursuit of refrigeration? Yes, you heard that right. It was a cold winter's day when Bacon, struck by a sudden flash of scientific curiosity, decided to test a theory. He hypothesized that snow, with its icy grip, could be used to preserve meat to keep it from spoiling. So, being a man of action, he grabbed a chicken, a handful of snow, and got to work. He stuffed that poor bird full of snow, packing it in tight, convinced he was on the verge of a groundbreaking discovery. But as we all know, sometimes even the best intentions can backfire spectacularly. Bacon, in his zeal to unlock the secrets of refrigeration, failed to consider one crucial factor: pneumonia. The cold, the damp, the overall unsanitary conditions of his experiment proved to be too much for his system to handle. He contracted pneumonia, his body ravaged by the very elements he sought to control. And so, the great Francis Bacon, a man who sought to understand the world, was undone by a simple cold. Allan Pinkerton, a name synonymous with detective work, a pioneer in the world of investigation, a man who built an empire on solving mysteries and bringing criminals to justice. He was a master of disguise, a cunning strategist, a man who always seemed to be one step ahead of the game. But even the most astute detective can fall victim to the most unexpected of foes. It happened on a seemingly ordinary day. Pinkerton, deep in thought, paced his office, his mind working through a particularly perplexing case. He chewed on his lip, a nervous habit he'd developed over the years, lost in a world of clues and deductions. And then, it happened. A simple bite, a moment of absent-mindedness, and Pinkerton's world was turned upside down. He'd bitten his tongue, a minor injury, a mere inconvenience, or so he thought. The wound, trivial as it seemed, became infected. Infection spread, his body ravaged by the unseen enemy within. Doctors were called, treatments were attempted, but it was too late. The detective, who'd faced down countless criminals, was brought down by a tiny microbe. Draco of Athens, the lawmaker, the man whose name became synonymous with harsh punishments, whose legal code was so severe it gave rise to the term draconian. He believed in law and order, in swift and merciless justice, but even he couldn't have predicted the ironic twist his own demise would take. Imagine this: Athens, ancient Greece, a bustling marketplace where ideas were debated as fiercely as goods were bartered. Draco, the stern lawmaker, enters the arena, his presence demanding respect, perhaps even a touch of fear. But instead of scorn or anger, he's met with adoration. Yes, adoration. The citizens of Athens, grateful for the stability his laws had brought, decided to shower him with gifts. Cloaks, hats, tunics, all manner of fine garments were heaped upon him, a symbol of their appreciation. Now, you'd think a man like Draco would be used to a bit of tough love, right? Wrong. The sheer volume of gifts, the weight of all that fabric, proved to be too much. He was buried beneath the outpouring of appreciation, suffocated by the very people who sought to honor him. The lawmaker, the man known for his harsh punishments, died not by the sword, not by the noose, but by an excess of kindness. Until next time, history buffs, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from history. Remember, history isn't just dates and battles, it's a tapestry woven from the lives, loves, and sometimes, the truly bizarre deaths of those who came before us. So stay curious, stay informed, and until next time, may your own life be a story worth telling.